Have you heard of Aaron Dries, the author of Dirty Heads? If not, stick around for this episode where we talk 1 to 2 about everything to do with horror, with writing, and all that cool stuff with Aaron in a minute. Hi everyone, I'm Selina. I'm a paranormal romance writer who's trying her very hardest to become a full-time author. Over to you, Aaron.
Sorry, God, I fucked that. There's the E for extreme language. Sorry.
You should definitely keep it in because the question that I had before we hit record was, am I allowed to swear? So my name is Aaron Dries and by night, I am an author, writer, illustrator, and I've been dabbling and branching out into screenplays and film-based stuff recently, but just a creator and lover of all things horror, and that's me.
And I'm Jared. I'm a genre-hopping writer who is also trying his damnedest to become a full-time author.
Welcome to A Sense of Wonder, the podcast.
This is your friendly monthly reminder to check in with yourself and see if you need a little bit of a course correct to help you keep that sense of wonder alive despite all of the crappy stuff that is happening in the world right now. And we're filming and recording this right now in April 2026, and it's been a bad year, let's just say. So we all need a bit of a sense of wonder right now.
So this podcast is where we share our journey as authors, still trying to make it, in the writing industry, and to mix in a bunch of other stuff that we hope will help you to keep your sense of wonder alive and bring out the awe and magic in your life that we all had as kids, and because the act of adulting sometimes diminishes that. As we go along, we'll be having interviews with other creatives and exploring a range of topics, so we hope you'll continue to subscribe and join us.
We're thrilled you could join us, but we're even more thrilled to have Aaron here with us. So thank you for making time out of your schedule, and it's good to see you on your feet. We were going to do this a little while ago, but you got quite ill, so it's good to see that you've bounced back and sense of humor intact.
Yes, we were saying just before we hit the record button that in my time of illness, I've organized all of my bookshelves. So I was trying to manifest health through my bookshelves in some way or another. But I think I got there. For that month that we were going to record, I got COVID, and then I got tonsillitis, I got strep throat, and then I got struck down with migraine. So I had a month-long stretch of just having to push on and push through. I have to work, have to make sure the lights stay on in the house. But it was a really kind of rough string. So I'd love to think that I've taken a couple of years worth of illness and condensed it down into 1 month. And hopefully it works that way. Otherwise, we get there. I've got a nice looking bookshelf at the end of it, if nothing else.
Well, I'm a believer in all of these things called feng shui and, energy and all of that kind of stuff. You should see my wardrobe. It's filled with clutter. If I could just clear that, I'd probably have a clear mind. So I totally get where you're coming from with the bookshelf helping your health and well-being. So on to segment 1, which is a bit of gratitude goes a long way. So this is just a quick reminder to find something to be grateful for in our lives. And I'm going to actually put Aaron on the spot straight away and go, what are you grateful for?
I've been really grateful for the support of friends and fellow writers lately. And I have always been the type of person who, in all aspects of my life, has been not by any sort of focus or concerned effort. I am the type of person that will, if somebody's just struggling, I want to be there. I make myself known and present if somebody needs to reach out to me. But I'm the last person to accept help that's ever extended in my direction. And I think after just getting sick for a month, I was just really, really grateful for the kindness of a lot of the community here in Canberra, who a lot of them, there's something in the water here, guys. There's something in the water. There are a lot of just writers and creative people here in Canberra. And whether it was helping me with edits and doing a bit of mentorship on some of my stuff, one of which is a story that I flicked your way, a short story. Karen Warren in particular provided me some really great edits and suggestions on that particular piece. I was really grateful for that. Or whether it was people who dropping off soup, I was really, really grateful for that during a period where the consecutive kind of things that were occurring were really starting to wear me down after a while, and just being able to reconnect with my friends, I'm incredibly grateful for. And maybe I should say yes to saying, are you okay, a little bit more often than I do. So it was a reminder of all that too.
You make me want to move back to Canberra. Selina and I both lived there. Well, Selina was born there,
I grew up
but
there.
we both lived there. Yeah, we both lived there many, many years ago. And it wasn't probably as artsy back then. What was it, the 90s, Selina?
Yeah, we left in 1999 in January,
Mm.
moved to Melbourne, much to my mother's unhappiness. But yeah, I only go back to visit now, and of course went to Conflux. So I mean, can I just jump in, Jared, with my gratitude? I
Yeah,
just
you
want to
go
say
for it.
thank you for having, saying yes, Aaron, and coming on the chat with us. I'm really grateful we met. We met through Conflux and through Lauren Elise Daniels kind of like prodded me to put in the proposal for the panel, which was on mental health and care for when you're writing fiction and horror. Yeah, I was so stoked when it came through. Such gratitude for the warm welcome from you and everybody that was at Conflux last year.
We loved having you. For listeners, Conflux is a speculative fiction conference that happens here in Canberra once a year. And last year I was on the committee and helped with the panel, with getting all the panels sorted and sorting through a lot of that stuff. It is a festival that punches above its weight in terms of its intention and trying to make something really meaningful. And it was a big job. I'm glad I did it, and getting to just having panels that had a focus on mental health and about self-care and about boundaries were things that we were really hoping people would pitch us. And when that came through, we're like, yes, we want that. And going and attending that panel as a member of the audience, I'd love to call it the breath of fresh air, but it's much more than a breath of fresh air. It's kind of the anchor that I was hoping that the conference would have. And just as somebody in the audience, hearing you both talk so eloquently about your experiences and the intermingling of mental health and what we do as creative people was just what I was hoping. And I'm so glad that I got a chance to meet you before the panel happened, Selena. And just that's the other really good thing about going to these conferences, whether you are planning things or just attending. There is so much to be gained from building community. And that begins sometimes with going, hey, you're a new face. Who are you? Hello. What do you do and what are you into? So those were some of the things I'm so glad we got the chance to connect.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and thank you for rescuing me because I felt like I was very alone. I'm in there all on my own. I'm like, I don't know anybody. Oh well.
Going to a conference or a convention for the first time on your own sucks, and it can be really isolating. It's such a weird feeling to go somewhere where you know you're at the exact right place at the exact right time and still feel like there is a wall that you need to climb over in order to feel like I'm allowed to be inside the fish tank as opposed to being on the outside looking and tapping on the glass. And I have absolutely felt that way both at domestic conventions and abroad at ones overseas. And I think there is no quick fix other than to just crack the glass and just go on in and let the fish fall where they may.
So, Jared,
That's
what do you
appropriately
think?
dark for a horror author, isn't
I
it?
love
I think
that.
so.
I love that. Let the fish fall out.
Yeah.
And I hope
Ja
there aren't any sharks.
Yeah,
Although sharks are
exactly.
beautiful. We won't have shark shaming here on this podcast.
Jared, what are you grateful for?
First, I had no idea you were on the panel. Selena and I
No, we didn't.
kind of joined. Yeah, we kind of joined forces to kind of give birth to that idea, and then ran it past Lauren and a couple of other people in the community that we knew. So I had no idea you were part of selecting that. So somebody who's a therapist by day, a big thank you for you and everybody else involved with Conflux actually focusing in on mental health. Selena and I talked to lots of different writers, and it never ceases to come up. It always is an issue. People are struggling with anxiety and depression and imposter syndrome and all sorts of things. So being able to talk in such a lighthearted but also a meaningful way about the importance of taking care of yourself. With my bias, it was wonderful to see, particularly in a environment like that where there were quite a lot of people who were writing horror stories. I know it's speculative fiction in general, but when I was at the conference, everybody I met was writing horror.
Yeah.
So
I'm just so glad that you guys went all in on it. It was great.
gratitude-wise, mine's really simple. It's music. It's been a really tough month for everybody, myself included, both at work and personally in my private life. And music for me is really transportative. So I love a bunch of different genres, everything from industrial heavy metal and thrash all the way through to pop. Throw a bit of Kylie or a bit of Madonna on and I'll be bopping around like crazy. And yeah, music has a really amazing way of connecting with my emotions and lifting me up. And helping me to kind of reframe experiences, or if I need to kind of just express how I'm feeling. So I'm really grateful for what it's been probably 35, 40 years of collecting all these different songs on CD and vinyl and not tapes anymore. All my tapes have died, but also on, Apple Music and other things like that. And just drowning myself in all of these different songs. And interestingly, it was stuff that I listened to in the 90s I kept going back to. And I say interestingly because the book I read of Aaron's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of it was kind of based around it in the 90s, wasn't it? Yeah.
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 They're talking about Dirty Heads, yeah.
Yeah,
It was
definitely.
it was a great decade. It's my favorite decade.
We won't go into nostalgia just yet, but just as a quick writing tip or a reminder about your writing, I'm a fiction book coach as well. So I work with writers to help them put their stories on the page, and just a little bit of encouragement for people to continue to stick with it. Do your sprints, find your writing buddies, find your writing community, and keep connecting back with your story and your community. Get feedback, because feedback's how you grow as a writer. And it's one of the best gifts you can get, I think, from somebody. And the other thing I would say is don't forget to thank your beta readers and your alpha readers, because they put in a lot of work to help you create the best story you can. Yeah, that would be my big tips for this episode. Jared, what's your
Yeah, a
one?
bit of context. So normally we have a segment called I can't remember what yours is called. That's right, Tools of the Trade. Mine's called My Mind Matters. But we were so excited to be talking to Aaron. Selina and I have discussed his book, Dirty Heads, on more than one occasion because it's quite a it's a good read. You need to actually pick that up off Kindle or out of a bookstore or somewhere and have a go at it. So we cut out those particular segments, but we did want to offer quick little reminders. And mine is just the simple stuff. Take breaks, be kind to yourself. The community aspect that Selena and Aaron have both mentioned already is so important. Reach out to other writers, check in on them. So it's not just about you. That sense of community is also reaching out and making sure that the people who are doing what you're doing are doing okay. And these are really your best friends, I guess. These are really important moments, that you can choose to engage in with other people. And remember, if stuff's hard, breathe through it. Breathing is your absolute best friend when you're stressed or when you're anxious. Just take a moment, do some quick breathing exercises, and get back into it. It will certainly stabilize your nervous system and help you to push forward and push through.
And I just want to say, be a giver. Don't just take. Give as much as you can, as well as receive things. Because when you give and you decide to go all in and actually be a part of a community, it gives back in spades.
Yeah.
I'm sure that Aaron can talk to that, because I think you're quite well interconnected for a community, and probably speculative fiction. I mean, yeah. Is there anything you
Yeah.
wanted to add to that, Aaron?
I really love the what you said about giving and not just taking, and I think that too many. Look, it's a natural inclination, and I don't judge people too harshly for having those moments where we may take more than we need to consistently. But I think it's so incredibly important that we do give back where we can, whether that is an attentive ear, whether it is often, especially within the creative circles, one of the best ways you can give back is to be a bum in a seat when an audience is needed. And sometimes that is an audience of one, and it's just having the opportunity just to listen as opposed to speaking at people, or whether it's somebody's got something and they're so scared that no one's going to turn up. Be that person, be a cheerleader. And also in terms of giving back, if you like something, say so. If somebody's work, it kind of moves you or shifts you, I think that, and I certainly, speaking for myself, I can often feel tongue-tied in telling people that I like their stuff, where I feel like, am I going to come across as a total loser if I fanboy out here? I think that actually there is so much merit in validating the experiences and the efforts of somebody who is accustomed to screaming into the void and assuming that no one else is out there. So I think that that is a really great way to give back, especially when we're talking about people who are in the creative world.
Such a good point. Such a good point. Thank
Yeah, it's
you.
beautiful. I'm
Mm.
just going to add in on Instagram lately, there's been a lot of, well, not a lot, but there's been a few authors posting about the importance of reviews. If you read a book, particularly by a new author or an Aussie author, especially because obviously we're biased, the three of us are Australian, jump on Amazon or jump on Goodreads or wherever it is and write a review, because that can be the difference between a bunch of sales and absolutely nothing. So, particularly if you're an author, like, be invested in your community and pay it forward. If someone has given you a good review, then go out of your way to make a review. And I've noticed on Bookstagram in particular, there seem to be two kinds of posters. There are the shameless self-promoters, and more power to them. They're always popping up stuff about their book and have you read my book and blah, 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 my book. And then there are authors who are trying to engage with their readers, and they're putting up posts, and they're seeking that sort of connection, and they're not always getting as much play as they could. So try and engage with people. I think of Danny Lyon, for example. She often pops up these really meaningful and beautiful little posts that I love to engage with, and things like that deserve more traction. And I think of, just to Aaron's point, I think it's BM Mitchie. She's a reviewer. She's always going to book launches, and she's always promoting authors, and she does it in a clever and humorous and beautiful way, but not just for likes on Instagram. Like, she's showing up for people, which is fantastic. I know that book launches, I think, are terrifying. You're always frightened that no one's going to turn up. So put the effort in, because I guarantee you it'll be repaid.
Yeah. So let's move on to feeding or fouling. Jared, did you want to take this one?
Sure. So I'll do one of both. Feeding, I don't often, which is going to sound hypocritical, but I don't often find time to read. Like, I get into bed of an evening, I snuggle up with my dog, I pick up my Kindle or a book, and I start to read, and I'm a page and a half in, and I'm unconscious. And, I wake up with the Kindle covered in drool, or the book half ripped apart, because I'm a bit of a rough sleeper. I'm just always, I don't know, tossing and turning. So in the last month, I've made time of a morning before I go to work, and while I'm eating lunch, to dive into books. I'm reading, I think it's Peter J. Alden's, he's got a science fiction series, and I'm on book 2 at the moment. I'm reading that, and I'm loving it. I'd kind of fallen out of love with sci-fi, and he's an Australian author, and he's really captivated me with his world building, and I'm enjoying that. So I'm going to try and embed that into my life and make it something moving forward. And fouling wise, I'm really good at boundaries, which you would hope for a therapist. I'm great at putting boundaries up, and I stick to those particular boundaries, but people in general aren't. And I found I need to be better at saying, no, you don't cross that particular line. I need to get better at communicating that with the people I love. Fantastic at doing it with clients, but I frequently let friends and family overstep boundaries, which has quite an impact on me. They're there for a reason. There's something that protects me or enriches me in some way, shape, or form. So fouling wise, I haven't been as good as being assertive around what my needs are, rather than just accepting everybody else's needs and letting them kind of walk over me. I'm still working on that one and trying to get better at it.
Aaron, did you want to? So, just for clarity, feeding is something that you've done that has helped you with your creativity, it helped to nurture it, and fouling is something that may be getting in the way or being a barrier to you developing or continuing to care for your creativity. Anything?
One of my big recent foulings, especially after having a month of kind of a little bit more isolation than I normally would have, I'm quite social. I'm like an introverted extrovert. I really enjoy being social, but I then need my recharge time. And if I'm not conscious of that, the scales tip and both ends of it become really messy. Having a month of just being really crook for a while, I had examples of both things that were feeding and also emptying my cup. To start off with the stuff that was really kind of plaguing my mind, I was really becoming, I think, a little bit addicted to the doom scroll, which is not at all what I want to be, and also not me. And also, I'm not interested, but there is an algorithm that is designed to feed into my anxieties. And the more I hover over a particular article or a reel that I'm seeing on social media, the more it wants to go, I can feed off you. And so I've just been giving blood to the vampires, and I shouldn't have been. And it was really starting to corrode my brain. I was having a case of bed rot, I think, where I was looking at this stuff and the thing that's terrible is that the idea of the doom scroll is that it flattens time in a way that really feels like theft when you stop and clock yourself, where you go, holy shit, 2 hours have just gone by and I hated every part of that. And why would I stop? And why is it difficult for me to put this little rectangular computer down when I know for a fact that not 3 feet to the next to me is my to be read pile where I know there is joy and that is what I love to do most. So I definitely felt a lot of that. That was bad. But also in that period of time, I was like, I can't crack my TBR pile. I can't do it. It's too big. And I said to myself, what is my gateway back to enjoying what I want to do right now? And what I did is I sorted my bookshelves and I found all these books from when I was a kid. I found all these like really fundamental books that made me excited to read when I was a teenager, and I read like 20 books. But these books are listed. I read like 10 R.L. Stein novels,
Oh, yes.
and then I read a bunch. I read a bunch of Christopher Pike novels, and I read some Lois Duncan novels. And I was like, I just this voracious 13-year-old just wanting to having the door open to me. And it just kind of it nudged the doom scroll and the phone temptations out of the way. They were short and acute reads. And they were tied to me because they were nostalgia bound, but also it's just opened the door up again. And now I've cracked into my TBR pile. So that's been two things that have been happening at the same time, but I really felt like I needed to find a way back to it because the rectangle of doom was just too tempting and too loud and too addictive. So that would be an example of things at both ends of that scale that's been going on in my head.
I love that you call it the rectangle of doom. It kind of is, isn't it? When we go and think about it, this tiny little device. I
It,
remember the
it,
times
it can
I never
give
had
joy
it.
as well. It can give
Yeah.
joy. It can be a pathway to great connection and making sure that you're connected. It's not all bad. Often what we put into it is so good, but what it doesn't give back. It's this abusive relationship that I feel like I'm having.
Yeah, yeah.
An interesting mind and body fact. So, that nostalgia stuff that you were engaging in, reading those old books, there's really exciting research showing that nostalgia, because it releases dopamine and serotonin and other good chemicals, actually promotes healing and can help physically to get us back on our feet when we've been unwell, and whether it's mentally or physically. And you, from what you were describing, this mix between extrovert and introvert, another nerd fact, we call it an ambivert, somebody who's quite balanced. Now and again, they need time to just sit and be themselves to recharge, but they're also lucky enough to be able to get out and socialize like an extrovert and charge up from other people's energy. Sorry, anything mental health related, I'm a complete nerd and I'll squeeze it in any opportunity I get.
Love it. Love it.
So good. You're in good company here because I usually bring everything back to writing. It's my nerdy space too. So my feeding is journaling actually. I have one of those A4 2026 diaries and I don't actually write on the day, what I did. I leave it for a few days and then when I get in a mood, I'll write and reflect on what's been happening in my life. Especially if something's been irritating me, I feel like irritation. Um, I've been really thinking about that and yeah, I'm learning to be better at valuing myself and my time with people. So as a coach, you tend to swap money for time. And sometimes actually what I'm really providing is value, long-term value, and it's much more than time. And I'm learning to develop a sense of understanding about that. And because I've gone from being an employee to a self-employed person, and it's quite a shift. So for feeding myself is learning to journal again, go back to that voice, that inner wisdom that I have, and see what's really going on in the state of play in my life rather than it's so easy for my mind to tell me that this story is happening in my life, but actually it gives me a chance to stop and go, what's the truth here for me? So I've been feeding myself that way and fouling is I'm really still very good at overextending myself and overcommitting to pretty much everything. I'm trying really hard to put those boundaries in, but it's very difficult. I think the people pleaser in me gets in the way, and there's a bit of a saboteur archetype coming out in my life. And so I love archetypes and stuff like that. So it's really giving me a chance to think about that so that I can make better informed choices as I go ahead in my creativity
Mm.
and in my business.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Aaron, it is time for a chat.
I'm ready.
You're ready.
We've sent a record number of questions to Aaron, so I'm already feeling sorry for you.
Love it. I'm all for it. I read through them and I said, as I said before, I'm an open book. Everything is on the table and I'm happy for us to deviate and go down the rabbit hole.
So, before we actually even get into that, I just want to talk a little bit about your book, Dirty Heads. And for those people who don't know, and those who are on the audio, there's a fantastic image on the front of like a young guy with this thing coming out of his, like an extra mouth coming out of his side of his face. So it's a pretty cool image. But what I loved about this book is it goes backwards in chapters. So it starts at, hang on, where is it? Number 20 and goes back to chapter 1. When you were writing this, Aaron, what inspired you to go from chapter 20? I was so interested in that. Talk to us about that.
Well, look, I would love to say that I've used it before in the past. My very first novel did and for a bit of context, the story more or less tells itself in a from beginning to end, but the chapter numbers themselves run backwards. And I used it in my first novel, House of Size, and I wanted to do it here because to be honest, it is a literary device as a way to create a bit of dread. And I wanted the sense that for our main character Heath, that even though there wasn't like some sort of clock ticking, that there was a sense of urgency that he needed to reconcile certain things within a certain time frame. Otherwise, he was going to lose something very serious to him. And so, by having the chapters count down as you progress your way towards what we think may be a point of reconciliation or damnation for him, that it was a way of creating stress. It was like an anxiety mechanism because he felt it, even though he didn't know he was counting down to something. But every day that you don't go towards healing, it is a kind of ticking clock. And I've had moments in my life of extreme stress or self-awareness where I feel as though I'm self-aware enough to go, gosh, if I don't check myself, I'm going to wreck myself. And I think that that's where that came from. And I wanted to do it. I've done it a couple of times, but I wanted specifically to do it for Dirty Heads because I really felt as though this kid, it's written from the perspective of he's about 19 or so, looking back to when he was a couple of years younger. And it's those moments where you just want to reach out to your younger self and say, dude, firstly, you're not alone. And secondly, you need to, it's like you want to reach out and hold your younger self. And so it's about time, and about that time doesn't always run in a logical kind of sense because and I guess like it touches base on trauma and things like that as well. So that was the reason why I wanted to use it as a device. But also it's a ticking clock. It's a sense of urgency, and I wanted to really keep people turning the pages as well. And those were all of the reasons that I wanted to adopt that particular device, one of many throughout the book.
Wow.
Dirty Heads is sorry, Selina.
Oh, I was just going to say I hadn't come across it myself as a reader. So I was like, oh, I really want to understand why you've done that, because that was a really big selling point. And I was actually surprised when I got it. I mean, I brought it in. So I live in sort of like a rural environment and I couldn't just go to the bookstore and buy it. So I had to buy it offline. And then I got it. I was like, wow, oh my God, it goes backwards. This is fascinating. Sorry, Jared, go on.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, I find the cover really difficult to look at. It's quite like the for those who are listening, the mouth coming out of the young man's face, it's monstrous. Like it's not a human mouth. It's like really quite a scary looking mouth. And I'm a horror fan. I think the first horror novel I read was the novelization of The Omen. And I was a little kid. Like Omen came out in the 70s. I think I read that novel in the early 80s. So I was maybe, I don't know, 9 or 10 years old. And I've been a horror fan my entire life. This novel was so disturbing. I was filled with dread, which was obviously what you were hoping for. Like I fell in love with Heath. I wanted to hug him. I wanted to rescue him. There are moments throughout the book that I won't talk about because I don't want to spoil it, but where you could see yourself kind of swooping in and helping this kid out. And not necessarily saving him, but giving him some kindness, some love. It's just so good. Like I was having borderline anxiety attacks throughout most of the book. It really got under my skin. It really disturbed me. And I loved that because it was very different to the horror novels that I've read. And at times I found myself wondering, is he having a mental health episode or is something really, really horrific happening to him? And again, I won't go into that
Mm.
anymore because I don't want to spoil anything, but I wanted to actually thank you. And one of the reasons I was so excited that Selina got you to do the podcast was just, I've never read anything like this. It helped to kind of redefine my concept of horror a little bit and really got under my skin. And there were times where I just wanted to put the book down because it was creeping me out so completely. So if you want a really visceral, really unnerving read, this is the book for you. It's beautiful. And your prose, the way that you put words together, there were moments where, and I kind of hated you for this because I'd start reading the beginning of a chapter and I would be lulled into a false sense of security because there are these beautiful descriptions as you're building the setting. And then, of course, you smack us in the face and something horrible happens. So there was quite a yo-yo for me. It really is a good read. Maybe don't read it before you go to bed.
No, I was trying to read it before bed, and I was like, I have to put this one aside. It's going to be in the daylight hours for me.
And
So
so I'm
kind.
fanboying all over you right now because I've only recently discovered you as an author. I'm excited to read some other stuff. There's no question in that. Just I really wanted to say this was great, and it was genre redefining for me, which I wasn't expecting at all, and I loved that. So just a huge thank you. It's such an exciting thing to find a new author with a different voice to what you're used to.
Thank you so, so much. As a reader, the older I get, the more I realize, irrespective of what I'm naturally drawn towards, it is voices that is becoming increasingly important to me. Whether it is a voice that I agree with or that I disagree with or that I'm drawn towards or repelled by, it is the presence of a voice that's becoming more and more important to the way that I'm engaging with art in general. So to know that that was a factor in what you've responded to means a hell of a lot. Thank you. That's very, very kind.
Awesome. And the
Yes,
short
well, we
story,
hope people will go out and buy it, read it.
yeah,
We love
please
horror.
do go and buy it.
Yeah, and look, if you want to
Um,
talk about, like, I think throughout, like, our conversation, we probably will talk about Dirty Heads on and off. I'm happy to skirt around spoilers. I'm happy for us to say, hey, just pause here and then skip like 5 minutes, because I think that there are things to discuss about that book that I've never had the chance to talk about,
yeah,
that I would only be too happy to, and it would probably link in with some of the themes of the podcast itself. This seems like the right place to safely discuss some of that stuff.
sure. Before we skip into the other questions, we were talking earlier before we started hitting record about and also since hitting record about nostalgia. So you shared a short story with us, which
Mm.
I think is coming out around October. And again, it's what I loved about Dirty Heads. Part of one of the many things I loved about it was its nostalgia bait, particularly for someone like me and
Mm.
Selina who grew up in the 90s, like an important decade for us. And the short story is I think it's across a couple of decades. Why are you nostalgia baiting us? What is the attraction to going back in time and only recent time and taking us into Australia a couple of decades ago or more?
That's an incredibly good question. I've been writing for a while now, and I find that the further I get away from, like, I'm never writing about myself, but I am writing about myself
Mm.
always. And the further I try to create something in which I feel like I'm transposing myself to some sort of other era, or to some era that I have a connection to at one point in my life or another, the more fake and phony it feels. And so I tried initially in the first drafts of Dirty Heads to tell it in the present tense, like to have it
Mm.
said now. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, to be really honest, I'm sure there is a suspension in myself that I could write about the youth of today, but I also am quite far away from it now. I'm 41 now. And writing about a 14-year-old in today's context, it was reading phony and it felt a little
Mm,
empty. And so it seemed like the only way that I could tell it authentically was to be as authentic to myself as humanly possible. And so I naturally just started to think about, like, if I was thinking of myself on the continuity of this particular character, the character of Heath would be my age right about now, but I'm going to write about a particular time in place in that kid's youth. And therefore, when is the voice manifest in? And I knew that it needed to be something that in and of itself counted down to something. I thought, and I remember just being that age and just Y2K being a real issue. And I remember
Mm.
also on the year 2000, I was at like Sydney Harbour with my family and a bunch of friends. We trekked in from the Hunter Valley and there were thousands of people all huddled around the harbour, and we're waiting for the tick down. And in the back of everyone's heads was like, what if the lights go out? What if what we were cautioned about actually happens? We're going to be one of thousands in the dark. And I remember just in the lead up to that being just having a real flurry of panic. And I thought to myself, if only the person that I was then had certain powers of introspection and was a little bit further along on the continuity of his life and in terms of his awareness and acceptance about his life. There might be a moment where if the lights all went out, the most prepared person there might have actually been me, because I would have been okay with the dark and I would have been okay with panic, and I might be like the person who was best placed to be just completely panic free at the end of what might have been the world. And so I wanted specifically to kind of put that type of feeling on that time frame. So it felt natural for me to set the book primarily in the mid 90s for that reason. In regards to the short story, it's called Nightbird. It's coming out in October. I'm really happy with it. It's the thing that's been most recently kind of cooking in my head. And I wanted to set it in the mid 70s primarily, mid to late 70s in Newcastle, New South Wales, because I grew up in the Hunter Valley. I went to uni at Newcastle and I have a lot of memories with Newcastle. But I'm also really, really fascinated and have a great affection for a Newcastle that I never experienced, which is my parents' Newcastle. The friends of my parents, their Newcastle. And as I'm getting older, I'm having those great opportunities where I can sit down and have a couple of glasses of wine with my dad, and he tells me about like it's a really great way of building relationships is just listening to other people's experiences. And so I was kind of looking for a pathway into a past that is kind of influenced who I am a person, because it's influenced the people who influenced me. So the 70s in Newcastle just became that type of a place. But Newcastle in the mid 70s wasn't always like a great place. It was a rough place. You know, growing up in the 90s, it was like going through a transitionary period. HP was starting to close. You were watching people going from a place of prosperity to all of a sudden having no jobs. And then from the back of that, the city kind of evolved again multiple times. It became a place, it's a city that has changed. And so I thought to myself, when I wanted to write about a bunch of guys who were surfers who are going to get back together and go back home, I was like, where am I going to set this? And it just naturally felt like this wave was pushing me in that direction. And so I just listened to people talk about that time and place. I researched about it and I kind of fell in love with it, even though I wasn't there then. But then I also think that there is a really dark side to nostalgia as well, and that it can be both a place that can nurture you at times. We were talking before when I was sick that going back there was a really great thing, but I think it can actually be somewhat corrosive and can set you up for failure. But it can also be a haven for you to hide what's really going on as well. And I wanted to explore that with these guys going back home to their city, not because they love it, but maybe because they know it's a place where they can get away with shit. And I was really kind of curious about the chickens coming home to roost type of story. I'm really attracted to stories that have a strong sense of place and of
Mm.
time. And I genuinely believe, not everyone will agree with me, I'm sure, but I really truly believe that the more that a story has a sense of place and time, the more it actually travels, the further it goes. You would think that and I've been working in screenplays lately where there is a really strong emphasis on making sure that something is as accessible as possible. So set it nowhere, set it at a time that is without a definitive point, where I actually think the opposite is more powerful, because the more real the world is, the more suspension of disbelief you can build into it, which I think is so important for horror. So I think that that's where all of that kind of that cocktail comes from. All of my or everything that I write, I think very, very hard about when it's going to be set. And a lot of my stuff is set in the present. But I'm ready and prepared to, assuming that I'm blessed enough to be able to age along a trajectory for a while. I'm ready for my feelings about that to change and evolve, but I wouldn't be surprised, as a lot of authors are, that I'm right, that stuff that's said now is from the perspective of a 41-year-old, and that, you know, down the track, it'll be the stories of a 50-year-old, and that I probably will be the type of person who goes back and writes about the 90s again, because that was at a certain point in my life. that shit went down. So I think that that's where it all comes from. I don't look at, I think nostalgia can fill my cup sometimes, but I think that nostalgia is a trap for me too. But it's also, there's an element of wish fulfillment. There's a bit of that in Dirty Heads because whatever realization, if there's healing for Heath, I didn't reach it until a little bit later in my life. I wish that had been me, but I wouldn't have had to want to go through at that cost that he did.
The stuff that you say about nostalgia is really important. Like, it is a double-edged sword. There's that healing aspect to it, and then there's wallowing and kind of judging now versus back then. Like, things will never be as good as they were. Like, it can definitely be a trap. I really wanted to highlight something quite special about the short story and also Dirty Heads, and that's the authenticity. And you made me think about a lot of the books that I've read over the last probably 4 or 5 years. And while I will connect with the characters, I don't feel like I'm becoming the characters. And I enjoy reading because it transports me. There are two scenes in Dirty Heads. There's the video store. I was there. I was Heath. It was such an authentic, accurate retelling of what a video store meant to a kid, of what kids did. And if you grew up in a small town, then it was the babysitter for a little while when when you went in and you did your shopping or whatever else. And also toward the climax, the mum, and I'm trying hard not to say anything that's going to spoil stuff, but the mum seemed like she becomes quite an important character. And I've got a special relationship, love hate sometimes, but a special relationship with my mum. But it certainly seemed that like I could feel something coming out through the pages that I can't quite define, like a love or a respect or an admiration perhaps for your own mum. And you've mentioned your dad, so I don't know if I'm reading that or if I'm just, putting my own stuff on there. But that authenticity wove its way through every character. Like, every character just leapt off the page and felt so real. And it was very easy to kind of slip into them. And it might be the fact that I did acting for a number of years, but I was seeing it in my mind's eye, but I was also often wishing, oh my God, that's a character I'd want to play. If I was acting right now, if this was a script, this is a character I'd love to play. And the authenticity also comes across in the short story, which is a lot quicker read than Dirty Heads. But the surf culture and all the rest of that. I dated a surfer for a while. Worst experience of my life. I'll never go there. No offense to surfers. But, for a surfer, it is surfing first and everything else is underneath. I was twitching all the way through those particular scenes as I was reading the short story, but you captured it all. And you also kind of captured that gritty, mischievous, almost dark stuff that happens when a group of boys get together at a particular age. It is very clear that you think very deeply, not just about the words that you're typing into a document, but about the characters, their inner lives, their motivations. I would actually love to sit beside you as you're writing and see if you've got all of these things just plastered everywhere that kind of have backstories and all these different motivations. The characters are so rich. It's awesome. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. Look, I'm really, really interested in masculinity and in the things about it that can be really great and the things about it that can be really, really problematic. And I really am interested in, look, if it doesn't feel real, it's not necessarily worth my time. I also like, but that isn't to say that there isn't value in things that have a different type of feel. I think satire is really can speak to you on an honesty, on a level of honesty that is so different from this type of stuff. You know what I mean? I'm a writer who definitely uses metaphor as a point of expressionism, but I'm not somebody who necessarily would use satire. I think my satire would seem obvious, but I think it's about form. It's about craft. It's about taking complex feelings about the world and people and trying to reconcile it through the craft of writing. So for me, it is a bit of a healing process. And I hope always continues to be because I think it keeps me regulated.
That's
I love
really
that.
interesting.
I love that it's a healing process for you. Oh, you have to tell us what is your process there when you're like cooking up a short story like this one or your novels or your novella type lengths. How are you creating your characters? How are you creating your worlds? I mean, setting's very important, but tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, look, in terms of like a writing ritual, I have none. I wish I would. I wish I had one. I think I would write a lot more than I than I do if I did. But my first novel I wrote whilst backpacking overseas for about 3 years on and off, and I wrote on a tiny little laptop thing that I bought for like $300 and would break down. It had basically a word processor in it. And I wrote it on buses, in bunk beds. I had a USB stick that I would like plug into hostel, computers,
Mm.
and I would tap away. And I found as though that the more furtive, the more richly I was living my life, the more I wrote. And so I could kind of adapt to write anywhere in any sort of situation, and I still do that. So there will be times where I will sit down in this office and I'll be like, I'm going to write, and it'll be like, nothing's coming, but I might go and sit on the couch, or I might wait a couple hours and think it's time to unwind for the night, and all of a sudden my brain starts ticking, and I might pull out my phone and start writing on my phone. And, there is a way about like, slowing my thoughts down because my fingers won't move that fast. That forces me to think
Mm.
about how do I take these complex thoughts and put them into words. So I wish I had a routine, but I know that the one thing that I can say is that the more I allow myself to be distracted, the less I write. And so sometimes I will go and I'll write at the library, I will write at a cafe. So that definitely helps. In terms of or the rest of it, it's intuitive. I'm just looking for avenues into reality. I'm looking for ways in which I just can kind of kickstart my feelings, and I only write about things that I feel as though I have something to say about. Like, it all comes from some sort of central hurt, really. Some sort of, splinter in my skin that I need to get out. And the first thing that I do is I ask myself, what is it that I'm feeling? What is this angst that I have? What is the cause of it? And what is the potential cure? And what are all those things that could go wrong along the way? And if you look at it that way, and I think what you develop then is a theme, and the theme becomes the spine of everything that I write, and everything has to feed from it or feed into it. And if it deviates from there, whether it is a plot device or a particular character or the use of a particular metaphor, it can throw you off. So I think about theme a lot, and I keep coming back to it really, really strongly. And I think also is I'm looking to have fun. I'm looking for that moment where you writing becomes that flow that can happen,
Mm,
and all of a
mm,
sudden hours go by. That's what I strive for. And I might be like, oh, I've got 10 minutes on the bus, and I'm just going to just like, quickly just take something out and write in my notepad or something like that. And all of a sudden I'm regretting the fact that I'm at my destination. Like, I'm looking
yeah.
for that. It
Mm,
is addictive. It is
mm,
addictive. It is like that great thing. So in those moments where the doom scroll gets too much and I'm like, why am I doing that when I know that happiness is just over there? I just have to remind myself that there is a natural high to finding that rhythm. And some of that stuff will be good that you write, and some of it will be terrible, but it all
Mm.
is worthwhile. So those are all the things that kind of feed into my process. But I also do like I'm a big music guy. I listen to music to just to kind of kickstart. I am a cinema, like I am rabid for cinema. And I love art. I love photography. I just consume and allow myself to be open. And I just want to continue to learn. And and I also want to continue to listen to people. So these are all things that happen. And the other day, my headphones weren't charged. I was like, damn, I got like an hour-long bus ride. And so I just sat there and I just listened to the conversations happening
yeah.
around me. And from that came a complete story. So I think it's about
Mm.
allowing myself to break from whatever routines that I think that I have, because whether
Mm,
I'm walking down the street or I'm walking into my office, I got to allow myself to improvise. And, from that comes, I think you need friction to have fire, and I think of it that way in terms of my process.
I love that. Theme first.
Yeah.
That is so good because I think for me it's more character and place and what's the conflict first before theme really starts to come out. So I just love that, hearing other people's processes.
Oh, I was going to say, I kind of love what you were talking about with the splinter that you need to get out, like some of the stories.
Mm,
They're coming from a place of hurt. When I was doing acting professionally, you have a lot of friends, and I still have a lot of friends who are in the performing arts industry. And every time something horrific happened to us, and we would lean on each other because it's such a supportive actors. It's all about emotion. It's all about, we get off on that stuff. So you're always there and you're always supporting people. Without fail, after something horrible happened to one of us, A few days later or a few weeks later, we'd go to the pub, we'd be having a drink, and then we'd be joking about how much that was now meat for the next performance. Like, suddenly there was a new emotion that we'd experienced that we could inject into a character. And I love listening to a writer kind of talk about it in a similar way, as in all of this shit has happened and I can milk that. Pain is horrible and we all go through pain and we all go through stress. And I think that we master pain when we can use it to our own advantage. It becomes a tool. We're no longer a victim of it. We're someone who is learning and growing from it. And with your writing, I mean, I've only read the short story and Dirty Heads for now. It is clear, though, that you are not one of these writers who is creating their own little formula so they can churn out as many books as possible and make as much money from the same recycled stories and characters with different names. To me, it feels like you've got a voice and there is something really important that you want to be saying, but that voice is confrontational. So when we were reading Dirty Heads together, Selina and I formed almost like a little bit of a book club, because every now and again we would catch up and we would be commenting on stuff. And there was one scene in particular Selina found quite confronting. I found it a bit confronting as well, but probably not to the same extent. So I was wondering, do you seek to be in your face? Do you seek to confront? Is that a part of the thing that you're trying to do as an author, to bring up things that other authors might not talk about and just be blunt and brutal and on the page about it?
Yes, I think yes. I think yes. And I don't want to say yes because it seems to cheapen what it is that I'm trying to do. But I think
Oh,
that
I don't think so.
I think that I need to own it to some degree because I think that there are things that I don't want to write about. There are things that are not within the things that I want to explore thematically. But but if something needs to be told, it's like I'm talking to myself.
Mm.
I'm like, what is the advice that I don't want to hear? That I know that I need to take on board? What is the hard look at myself that I need to take on board that I'm not willing to and I keep flinching from? And I think that is incredibly important that as anyone, regardless of what type of genre you're working within, but especially if you're gravitating towards some of the dark stuff, there's no time for flinching. Do not flinch. And I need to allow myself to not think about the reader for a while and how that's going to make them feel, and only to pursue my own kind of truth. And I mentioned before about screaming into the void, and it really does feel like that sometimes as
Mm.
writers. And I just need to think of myself out there or somebody that I know and I love and kind of picture that person. And I need to get from here to there. And it means sometimes I have to shout really, really loud. And I need to think about how do I amplify that. And there is a time and a place for shock. And there is a time and a place for aggravation and for provocation. And I think that there have been pieces of art and literature and film and music that has really assaulted my nerves. And it is a very, very, very special relationship when that happens. And I'm not shy to try to do it. And also it means that you open yourself to a categorization of some kind. Like, and I think it's really interesting to think about how books are marketed and where books like these kind of sit on a shelf. I have been called a splatterpunk author, which I'm actually really comfortable with. I'm really comfortable with the idea of being a splatterpunk author, even though my stuff is not really terrifically splattery, although some of it is. But I also have been called an extreme author or and those are categories for somebody else to put me in. I can see elements of all of these different things, but I'm just trying to do story first, and I'm thinking about truth first. And I think sometimes it means it has to be a firm fist that slaps you across the face, as opposed to the hug that sometimes I'm looking for and wanting. Sometimes what I do need is to actually kind of shake myself a little bit, and so I'm maybe trying to put myself into either a point of submission or enlightenment. And I think that along the way there is the reader, and that experience is removed from me, but an incredible curiosity to me. And that spectrum is different for every reader. The threshold for a lot of things is very, very different. And there will be things that I will read that doesn't spike my anxiety, but there are other things that do. And some of those things are very, very quiet and introspective that really, really rattle me, and other things that I'm just kind of numb to. So I'm fascinated by it, but I just try to be as authentic to what it is that I'm trying to say as possible. So do I do it deliberately? Yes, but I'm doing it for, I think, the right reason.
I found Dirty Heads to be really healing, which probably sounds strange because I have called it quite a disturbing and a confronting read. But it was like there was a little knot inside me I didn't know existed, a little knot of pain that slowly unraveled in some of the quieter parts of the book where we actually got to kind of reflect on what was happening to the character before the balls to the walls sort of stuff happens. And I think that that's beautiful. I think it's important for you as an author to know that the discomfort that you're putting yourself through, or the challenges that you're pouring your heart and guts out on the page, to explore, are impacting your readers. Maybe not everybody will take away the same stuff I did, but I actually found parts of Dirty Heads to be just so poignant and so um, confronting in a way that was healing. And I don't actually know how to describe that, but there was something really quite special there. So I love that you've been brave enough to just, I don't know, you've jumped in boots and all. You've just gone in there and you've unpacked some really difficult stuff. And I think that it's made you quite an important voice for the rainbow community, you know? And one of the things that annoys me, and Selina and I have spoken about this on previous episodes, horror doesn't get the credit that it deserves. It's kind of seen as a bit of a subgenre to some readers. You know, the literary elite don't necessarily recognize horror or romance or science fiction, some of that more speculative stuff. I really hope that a book like this gets a lot of traction because, yeah, you've got a very important voice that you're sharing with the world. A couple of points through reading Dirty Heads, I thought this should be taught in schools. This should be one on the reading list in schools because it is raw and it's honest.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Where do I even begin in digesting a lot of that? I'm so happy that you sense that there's hope in Dirty Heads because a lot of people do not. It is not my responsibility any longer to kind of have feelings about where people sit on that spectrum. I'm happy for anyone who reads it, but to know that there are people who see the hope in it and that there might actually be a sense of optimism to it, maybe even what seems to be really bleak is actually a happy ending, makes me happy because that is something that I was thinking about. And
Yeah.
I have other works that do not have that by design, but I have got really great readers who have a completely different read on Dirty Heads. I've got really great, amazing readers who are straight, and they come to me they give me these theories and things like that. I'm like, this is awesome. It's not at all what I felt, but I love that this is what you're taking away from it. And then I've got people from within the rainbow community who have a very different read on it. And I think that if I was to make a broad generalization, and again, it's not my business to how people react to it anymore, but I find that it's people from within the queer community who are seeing hope, and other people might be considering it to be really, really bleak and unhappy. I think that fundamentally, what Dirty Heads is about is that the coming out experience, which is what the book is about, is a kind of liberating death. And what has to die is not just your relationship with who you thought you were. If you were the type of child at a certain time in history who thought you were one thing and then you come to a realization that you might be different, you have to let go of what you thought you might be. But most importantly, you have to live through other people's death of their feelings about you or their expectations for you. And so if you can all navigate that space, what you get at the end of it is community. But for those who cannot navigate that space, what you get is isolation or you get goodbyes. And as painful as some of those things will be, there is a real sense of hope on the other end of it. And that I think that there is something as well about going through periods of really intense introspection at a young age that does set you up for some pretty good resiliency for the rest of your life. And I wanted to engage with a bunch of that stuff as well. So there's a monster in Dirty Heads, and a lot of people think of it as a manifestation of this kid's queerness. And I'm like, well, it's really not to me. It's a manifestation of other people's expectations of him. The people should be who thematically seem designed to be consumed by that expectation of the people who set the expectations, which is why the people who are at most danger of this monster is not Heath, but the people who love him dearly. And I think that I was trying to write a book about empathy for people shifting their feelings about you over life and about giving them some grace. And I think that we ask for grace, but sometimes we don't return it. And that's okay at the time. But this is why it's a book that's set in retrospect. And I think that Heath is trying to find a way to forgive himself a little bit. So these were some of the things that were cooking in my brain when I wanted to figure out how the hell do I take these complicated feelings and turn them into something that I want to express. That's what this book is kind of about for me. But it's not for everybody, and that's okay too.
It is such a layered read, that's for sure. Um, yeah, I don't know what else to say. Like Now I'm thinking I've got to go back and reread the book. Like I'm learning more and more and more. And what really fascinates me though is your reflection that queer audiences are seeing it one way and straight audiences are seeing it another way. There's something really, really fascinating there.
Yeah, I think yeah, and I kind of love that. I love it. I love it, and I think there's value in all of it. Like, it's so
Yeah.
good. It's the best, and this is the really great thing and also the terrifying thing about writing is that I write it, but then the moment that I let it go, it's not mine anymore, and do you know what? It shouldn't be. And that is the great alchemy of the writer-reader relationship, and I'm a part of it as a reader myself because I read so like, with, like, a huge ferocious appetite. There is a very, very special and intimate relationship there that is both acknowledgement and looking each other in the eye, but it's a one-way street also at the same time. I'm really, really curious to keep meeting people who there is something in this particular story that resonates for them. I'm curious and happy to keep hearing people's feelings about it because they're all different. And I'm just really grateful that this book has connected with people. Like I've been writing for a while now, but this one seemed to spark with people more than others. And it hasn't slowed down. I'm still getting contacted about this book, and it makes me incredibly grateful. Incredibly grateful.
I wanted to know when you were writing this story, did you ever have any fear about putting yourself out there in that way? Like that you were revealing something so intensely personal about yourself in some ways? Because I think fiction can actually reveal more about us than we realize to our readers and to ourselves once reread it. I'm curious about how you dealt with those experiences and then still took the leap to put it out into the world.
I don't think that if this had been the first thing that I'd written, I don't know if I would write it so openly, but I had been writing for a while, and I also came out of the gate writing in a little bit. I'm really happy with my first novel. Most people really, really don't like their first works, but I wrote a book. It was called House of Sighs, and it has lingered. It has hung around. It has not gone away. I'm really, really happy with it. And I wrote that in a vacuum. I was going through those hostels. I was traveling. I wrote it in a complete vacuum where I didn't think about anyone else. I just purely thought about what it is I was trying to express. And the reaction that I got from that book toughened my skin. It really, I had no choice but to toughen it. It was confronting to all of a sudden, all those feelings and those thoughts, because that book did get published. So just in terms of that particular book, I was backpacking. I was in the States. I went through like borders, or chapters, whatever it was. It no longer exists anymore. And I found an edition of Rue Morgue magazine, and I flipped through, and at the back of it was a competition, which was for unpublished authors. And the contract was send in your book, and and then there's going to be like a survivor style elimination round over a period of a year, and then the winner gets a book contract. And I thought, and it closed in 3 months. And I was like, can I write a book in 3 months? Because I've got something that's been cooking my brain. Maybe I can give it a try. It'll be a total mess. I did it. I submitted it. It got picked for the top 10. And over that period, over that year, I won. And I got that contract. And so I was writing so fast and so honestly that I didn't even stop to think about what other people would think about it. And then when I went through all that, it just was really confronting because I got hate mail. I got real homophobic mail and stuff like that. I got people who wrote in who were like, "I've absolutely hoodwinked me on this book because I thought it was about this, but I figured by the end of it, it was about this." And I'm like, "Great, what you've done on that trajectory is probably identified some sort of homophobia that you have relations." And it really toughened my skin to it. And so since then, I've been just like a little bit prepared for it. But I felt like I needed to go through all of those type of things in order to be able to write a story like this as authentically, with also a sense of fear and also a sense of fuck you. I want to
Yeah.
do what I want. And also going through a period of like the ups and downs of my writing career where I kind of came out of the gate really, really strong. And then like the industry kind of really got me down. I
Mm.
really felt kind of chewed up by it. I got caught up in the wheels of publishing houses changing gears, publishing houses going through controversies, and also having stuff that I really believed in going out of print really, really rapidly and having to reorientate myself and then going, do you know what? I'm not going to wait for somebody to come through here and white knight me out of like my total depression about this type of shit. I'm going to write something for myself. And Dirty Heads, I self-published. I
Mm.
was like, this is the one thing that I was like, I'm going to just do it myself. But I didn't do it alone. I had friends who believed in me and people who kind of propped me up. I could not have, and he would kick me in the shins and say, fuck you, dude. Like, I had nothing to do with the success of this or you even getting out, but acknowledgement where it's due. I had a friend who gave me a pathway to be able to tutor me through self-publishing. And his name's Adam Caesar. He wrote Clown and a Cornfield. We've been mates for years. He was like, hey, look, I'm self-publishing my backlog because we both had been through the same trajectory. And we had a bunch of books and we put all our eggs in one basket and that publishing house went out. And we were like, what do we do with our backlog? And he just got a bunch of ISBNs and he started self-publishing and found an audience through that. And he's like, I've got a couple of ISBNs left over. Like, do you want one? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. He goes, well, why don't we publish it through whatever this fake, like this kind of, it's not fake, it's real, but like this publishing brand that I've kind of put attached my books to. Why don't you make it an umbrella? And all of us kind of lost souls, we can kind of republish our stuff and revise it through this kind of auspice of just mates getting together, basically. So he gave me that pathway, and I thought, this is something that I just want to get out there. And I did it. And I'm so glad that I did, because who would have thought that it would, just shooting that arrow across the bay, it's hit multiple people's. And it's so funny. Like, Black T-shirt books is the auspice that we're kind of publishing under, right? But it's just us and Adam. And this book was nominated for a Shirley Jackson Award. Adam messaged me. He's like, dude, this is pretty funny. And he tweeted something that I cherish, like, really, like, close to my heart. He tweeted it. He's like, he retweeted the story about Dirty Heads being nominated for a Shirley Jackson Award, which means a lot to me. It means a lot to
Yes.
all of us. And he's like, wow, Black T-shirt books, surprisingly authentic. And, surprisingly legitimate, which is just so fun. And so, again, about gratitude is that sometimes it's the little avenues that you give somebody that you don't, they're not going to give you your shoes to walk in. They're not going to pave it, like, they're not going to guide your hand, but they might kind of illuminate a bit of a path. And do you know what? Maybe you need to step past your own ego and take the advice that's given to you, because in terms of, like, launching this book and how to market it and how to pick a cover and about how to choose my back cover copy really carefully. Who do I get in as to do the interior design? Who do I hit up? Like, what time of the day do I launch this thing? Do I tease a cover or you reveal? Do I wait and hold it back? Adam gave me, like, some really good advice there, and I was like rejecting it all the way through. And he's like, dude, listen to me. And I'm like, do you know what? Actually, I'm going to put faith in friends and actually acknowledge what they do and what they're good at, as opposed to thinking that I'm the expert. Because do you know what? If there is anybody who is not an expert, it's the people who kind of take a gamble on themselves, and that's where the magic happens. Again, a moment of gratitude for Adam, which he would kind of shrug off, and that's why I love him. So, thank you.
I say, Adam, just take the bloody
Yeah, fuck you, Adam.
gratitude. Just take it. Because look how good this is. But you just said something very interesting, because I read tarot. I read tarot for people and also for characters. But as a part of my own self-reflection, one of the messages I keep getting from the tarot at the moment is to be open to the community around me. Say yes more to collaboration and friendships, and getting that help from others. You don't have to do everything on your own anymore, Selina. You can actually be a part of something bigger. And there's more strength that comes from being a bit vulnerable and letting somebody else in to help you. And I guess that's really what you're talking about as well, is listening to the wisdom and knowledge and experience of somebody else as well. That
Yeah, you mentioned it before, saying thank you to people who have been really, really great, and have taken the time to help you along the way. I'm really, really thankful to Karen Warren for helping me out with Nightbird, the story that we were talking about before. I'm really, really grateful. And also, you should say it. If something connects with other people, and like, I had a short story of mine that was nominated for the Bram Stoker Award. And I took every opportunity where I could to say thank you to the beta readers who really helped me believe in that story. For that particular story, it was called Nonna Doesn't Dance. And the two people who really made me believe in myself enough with that particular story were Angela Slatter and Alan Baxter. Thank you, guys.
Wow.
Like, that's really, 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 like, it meant a lot. And I didn't win that year, but you know what? I lost to the best friggin' person who was the most talented person in the room. And that is even of itself the best compliment you could ever take. But I was very, very prepared and ready to thank them with every fiber in my body. But I think it's really important that you say thank you to the people who have helped you, and that pay it forward. And I'm very, very grateful for every drop of mentorship that I've taken along the way. And I'm now at a point where I'm like, I should be paying it back more than I do. I've done a couple of mentorship things, which I haven't done in the past. I'm really glad that I did. And I would like to continue doing that as well.
So I'm mindful of the time, Aaron, but I do want to ask you, like, for somebody who is new to horror writing and trying to get their community, trying to figure out mentorships and that, what is your advice on how to, or tips on how to help them move forward in their writing careers?
Sorry, I was freaked out by the vampiric light coming through my window right about now. And as a ginger guy, I need to like
You might
readjust.
go up in flames.
Flames. I may go up in flames. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Probably not as well as I first said it, but anyway, I now I've lost it. So somebody who's brand new, I'm asking for a friend. This would be me, by the way. You want to develop your horror writing skills. You want to learn to write with authenticity and truth and stuff like that. How do you like connect in and get mentorship? What tips have you got for somebody who's brand new, aspiring to sort of build their writing and connect with others?
The very first step is to read diversely. Reading diversely opens many, many avenues that you didn't know were there. And also to say yes to recommendations that come your way about new authors. And then through that, I think that's the best way to open your spectrum, because you start to live and read deliciously. And then that enables you and opens your mind to influence and opportunity that you may not have anticipated. So I think that that's a massive part of it. I think that going to conventions can be really, really important, and meeting people. I think that acknowledging the awkwardness and how uncomfortable that can be, and figuring out how best to support yourself through that process is really, really important. I think that showing your work to others is incredibly confronting. And I think you need to figure out exactly how you do that in a way that is the most supportive for yourself, because you're asking yourself to be a bit vulnerable. You're asking something that is quite aggressive from a place of vulnerability. And I think that you need to think about the best way to kind of navigate those waters, because writing from the wound, and then all of a sudden people being shocked by what you're writing is a really tough lesson to learn, and it spooked me for a little while. One of my mentors in my younger years was one of my favorite authors, and I would never would have been on his radar if I hadn't gone to a convention one year. And so this guy's name is Jack Ketchum. He wrote The Girl Next Door and a bunch of other really, really terrific novels through the late 80s through to the mid 2000s. And I went to this convention in Atlanta, and he was there, and I was so nervous to meet him. I was like, "Hey sir, can you sign my book, sir, please?" It was like 2013 or 2012 or something like that. It was years and years and years ago in Atlanta, and I was just terrified to meet him. And he signed it, and he handed over the books, and I was like, I'm going to cherish these things for forever. But God, I wish I had the balls to just say what I really felt, and also just to have a real conversation. And at the very, very end of the convention, when everyone's leaving and everything's winding down, I was getting ready to leave, and everyone was kind of like getting ready to find where are we going to have lunch on that last day? It's about 11 o'clock in the morning. Everyone's checking out of the hotel. Where are we all going to go? I'm in a big crew. Adam was there. We were there together. And anyway, they were all like branching off to go to this non-existent lunch, which eventually didn't eventuate because no one could decide where they were going to eat. And I just hovered in the foyer, and Jack Ketchum was there, and he came up to me, and he's like, you guys, you're that kid who was too scared to talk to me. I could tell a mile off. And he's like, I've got a flight to catch in about 4 hours, and I've got nothing to do, and I have a bottle of whiskey here. Do you drink whiskey? And I'm like, not normally at 11 a.m. And he goes, do you want to drink whiskey at 11 a.m. today? And I said, yes, I do. And so we sat in that foyer, and we drank whiskey, and we spoke about writing and about creativity and about life and about death and about all those things that make us good humans and therefore make us good writers. And I wouldn't have been there if I hadn't kind of mustered up the gumption to go to my first conference overseas in Atlanta, to literally, I had to say to people that, like, it was like my 30th birthday, and people were like, oh, this is a big one. What do you want? And I'm like, just $10 that could go into a flight that'll get me over there. I'm so glad that I did it. And I was kind of just asked for help. Got there, did it. That opened a pathway to that. And he taught me the importance of writing from the wound and about being honest and not flinching. So great things came from me saying yes to that opportunity and not being when my natural inclination was to be scared to go, maybe today I'll be brave enough because somebody's asking me to be brave. I think that those are the opportunities that you need to be open to. And sometimes, well, always, imposter syndrome is the thing that will hold you back. But do you know what? Everyone else there feels the same way.
Mm.
Everyone else feels the
Mm.
same way. And if and we people may not know how to interact with you, but they won't ask you to come along if they didn't want you to be there. And you have to believe that. I keep thinking that no one else will believe in you if you don't believe in yourself, but sometimes people do believe in you when you don't believe in yourself, and I think that that is an incredibly beautiful thing. So being open to a bit of beauty goes a long way.
I really want to pick up on that point about mentoring because that's so important. And I'm seeing in the Horror Writers Association, but also in the Romance Writers of Australia, opportunities for mentoring. One of my mentors was an Australian author, Dawn Hill, ended up becoming one of my best friends. She sadly passed away a number of years ago. But, once our friendship evolved after I went to one of her workshops where she was talking about her books, she said to me, best piece of advice I can give you as an aspiring writer is your vulnerability will heal someone. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Because everything she wrote was about her own experiences. So she was really always encouraging, inject as much of yourself into what you're writing. Every character is you. Explore every pain through every character and just put it on the page because it's going to help somebody. And if we're not here to help people, what are we here for? Like, what is the point? So mentors can be life changing, and Dawn's words continue to echo for me. I met her back in the early 90s in Canberra, funnily enough. And they still, yeah, all of those teachings are still mean quite a lot to me today. So if you can, as an aspiring writer, get into one of these mentoring programs, do it because you'll probably be surprised by how much it will enrich your life. And Selena, you met Dawn as well at the same time, I
Yes, I
think,
did.
Yeah, tell me about that experience, Celia.
about meeting Dawn. Oh,
Meeting Dawn. I think I was in awe of her a lot. This is probably more when I was in personal development and spirituality type of things. And I love the paranormal. I love to try and understand what happens. Maybe, we don't know what happens after we pass away, but, what if, which is why I love paranormal stuff. And she kinda opened my eyes to different possibilities in the world, and, she I didn't probably have the same relationship as Jared did because, there was some sort of connection that, it's almost like everybody vibrates on different frequencies, and Jared and Dawn clicked because they had, like, a similar connection. Whereas for me, I was like the fangirl in the background. And, since I've lived with Jared over the years, I think he stole my Dawn Hill books, to be fair. I don't have them anymore. They're a long and you
maybe.
can't get them anymore. They're
Us.
very hard to get. But she was instrumental in me, I guess, becoming more of a reflective human being, understanding what it means to be human and to, like, how do I say this? Not every experience everybody will believe in, but if you have had a personal experience, that is yours and nobody can take it away. And it's kind of like that with writing. When you write from a level of authenticity, people can hear that truth. They can feel it. They can, even if they deny it, it's still there for them. And yeah, she was kind of like that for me. I haven't really my mentor is actually, Lauren Elise Daniels. She's been really instrumental for me.
She's
Um,
amazing.
yeah,
She's
Mm,
and
such a good human.
she is a
yeah.
great human, and we had her on here, and we could have talked with her for hours, as we could do with you as well. She's somebody who's believed in me for many, many years, and I've been the one that's with the imposter syndrome, hence why I'm still struggling to put my novel out, after many attempts at writing novels. Like, you do need people to believe in you, and yeah, it's so important. But I do find it interesting that a lot of the writing groups have mentorship available, and that's something I think people need to open themselves up to if they're ready and willing to take on a bit of guidance from somebody who has more experience and knowledge than they do, but also remembering that it's all to some degree a subjective opinion as well. So we need to be mindful of those things as well.
Yeah, it is subjective. And look, I think that I'm not one to give advice, but I think the thing that I learned most from the people who have mentored me is that um, if you live diversely, it makes sense to write diversely. If you live authentically, your writing kind of tends to be authentic as well, and that authentic evolves over time. I think of the Jack that I knew only on the page. Jack Ketchum that I knew on the page was one thing. The Jack that I got to meet and had like that correspondence with was another type of Jack. And then the Jack when he was just about to pass away, and then I read his last book, which is called Gorilla in My Bedroom, was a collection of short stories. I was like, I can't think of any book that was more openly honest and authentic about dying of cancer than that book. That had shocked me in a way that did as when I was reading his stuff as a kid. I think that just writing as authentically as you possibly can is the greatest thing that and the greatest gift you could give another reader, whether that reader is your mentor or somebody on the other side of the fucking planet. It is so
Mm.
important.
I'm going to ask a question that I think is really important, particularly considering the subject matter that you write about and the things that we've talked about. How do you balance these darker themes of horror and mental health with your own well-being?
Funnily enough, whatever it is that people reading it and people like will tell me, and I say it, and I love it when they tell me because it just makes me smile in some sort of devilish way. They go, "God, your stuff is rough, man." Like, it is. It puts me through the ringer. It is distressing. It's dark. It's disturbing. It's upsetting. I lost sleep over it. And I'm like, I'm not at all surprised because writing is my self-care. Like, this is
Mm.
just the splinter that came out. You guys are reading the splinter.
Mm.
This is the byproduct of my self-care routine. So I feel pretty good, but I do need to do it. I do need to write, otherwise it starts to build up. And I think that need comes from firstly just being a human being. It comes from existing in the world, but also that my day job over the past 20 years has been working with people who have fluctuating vulnerabilities. And I've worked with people going through mental health who have had need to lean upon others for mental health support, homelessness, people who are currently or have passed, been unhoused, and within the human rights kind of sphere. And I have pickled myself on anxiety and not had those boundaries that I know that I have needed to have and have felt myself slipping and have needed to figure out a way to make sure that I keep the balance so that I'm not tipping one way or the other. One way manifests as completely cannot function, and the other manifests as completely over functioning to an extent that I don't sleep and I could work for forever and then probably drop dead at any given point. This is the byproduct of that. So, in terms of the way that I engage with my own work on the opposite end of it is that it ceases to be my thing. It becomes the thing of another reader. So I think that that's kind of where it comes from. And I have written a lot about practitioners. So I had a collection of short stories. It was called Cut to Care, and it's a collection of little hurts, is what I kind of dubbed it as. And it's all about caring gone wrong, or caring gone right, or caring that's been exploited, or caring that has started as one thing and evolved into other, whether with your consent or otherwise. And I had a particular story in there that was originally published in Shock Totem magazine called Damage Incorporated, which is a title that I stole from Metallica. And that is, I haven't let that story go. It is blown out into a novel, which is the novel that is completed and hopefully it finds a home. My agent is shopping it around. It's no longer called Damage Incorporated. It's called Becoming Emma Braintree. And it is a story that is specifically about boundary creep. And it is about when we, in a very, very brief snapshot, it is about a health practitioner whose role it is to go into the home of grieving people and to act out the lives that this deceased person had, to give family member the opportunities to grieve and to say goodbye that they never got the chance to do in reality. And about the person who does it too well and the family won't let her go. And then realistically, the practitioner maybe doesn't want to be let go because her boundary creep has left her vulnerable to this to begin with. And so it's an identity thriller. That is something that we're shopping around at the moment. So I also think, but I needed to write that story. That was a wake up call for me in that story. And I think that I'm not completely over that place. So I had to go back and refashion it as a full novel. And I'm kind of glad because I feel as though something has lifted off my chest in the process of doing so. I hope it finds its home, but you just have to be patient. So we'll see what happens on that front.
Would you consider self-publishing that book? Like, sounds, as someone who's been doing this for 31 years, I see boundary creep all the time. I give lectures about the dangers of it at universities and TAFE colleges. Really important.
Mm.
topic, would you self-publish, or are you just gonna wait for traditional publishing?
I don't know. I don't know. I was extraordinarily fortunate for somebody to believe in me, which is my agent who stepped into the picture about 2 years ago. It was with another book that is completed that hasn't been published yet, which I would call it is absolutely nothing to do with Dirty Heads, but it is a thematic evolution of all the things in Dirty Heads. And that book she loves. And she was like, I want to find a home for this. We parked shopping that around specifically for Becoming Emma Braintree because it was a short story that was embraced and it got adapted into a really terrific short film. And everywhere that film went, everyone was like, we need to see a feature. And I'm like, wait, maybe there's more to this. Maybe
Mm.
there's more to it. And so I blasted it out into a novel, and that has also blasted itself out into a screenplay, which has blasted itself out into things that I can't talk about yet, but that are exciting things. So I'm thinking to myself, I could get it published comfortably at the level that I've been at the moment. I could self-publish it, but then also I'm like, I've got to have some sort of sense of hope here, right? We keep kind of circling around hope. And I've got to have some sort of sense of belief in myself. I would love to be able to communicate more broadly, and that comes with a broader readership that can maybe come from traditional publishing. So I'm willing to be patient for a while
Yeah.
longer and let's see what
Okay.
emerges. But you never know. There are many, many great books that get traditionally published and then they die on the vine, or they get out
Mm.
there and they go nowhere. But I'm hoping that this particular theme, which again, I try to write as personally as possible, like it's intensely personal, it's very deep, it's very dark, it's very me. There is a lot of me in it. I'm hoping that it communicates broadly. You know what I mean? I think that I took the
Mm.
lessons that I learned from having to believe in myself with Dirty Heads, and I've put it into this particular book because I truly believe that if I didn't start to explore that particular storyline and challenge myself whilst writing it in all those different formats, I think that I probably would have made myself incredibly vulnerable. There were serious signs of vicarious trauma that I was having from just my day job. And also there were signs of vulnerability that other people saw that I should have seen before I did. And it's a book about that. So it's about kind of
Yeah.
reconciling that. So hopefully
No.
I wanted to be out there. I'm desperate for people to read it, but it requires great patience. And I've been, again, listening to the people who are better than me at writing and who have pulled me aside. And I
Mm.
won't name names, but there are people who have pulled me aside and said, look, maybe you should not publish this particular book here. Maybe you should wait. Maybe you should sit on this. Maybe you should ask people to believe in you more and see what happens, because maybe you've got something, Aaron. And I've had people tell me that, and I don't want to hear it because I don't believe it often. But what I have to respect and show gratitude where it is, and maybe acknowledge the belief that other people have in me. And I think a lot of those are the things that have kind of been playing into my decision to just trust somebody else who believes in me a little bit more. I'm really grateful for those people who have had those conversations with me. Some of those conversations I didn't want to hear at the time. And because it would be great to get things out there, that's something that I'm trying to practice more. So I'm believing in
Yeah.
other people more.
Beg your agent to get a wriggle on, because I want to read this book. Let's get it out there. We'll go back to maybe this needs to be one of the last questions, Selena. We're taking a lot of Aaron's time, but
Yes.
this is another important question. How important to you is it to, I guess, make sure in some way, literary, horror fiction, horror movies, any fiction, any movies, to have queer voices out in the world? Obviously, the whole visibility thing is huge lately. Everybody wants to be seen. It's still a grossly underrepresented cohort, for want of a better word, in fiction, on TV, in films, in music. So is it important to you? Do you feel a responsibility to make sure those voices are present in some way, shape, or form? Or is it just something that you have a passion for?
There's two answers. Yes, it's extremely important. Secondly, it's the last thing I think about because it's just me. Like I'm just being me. And there are times where I'm like, do I incorporate a certain character in this particular thing? And sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it's not. But it's like my natural inclination is that whether I'm writing about straight people or gay people, they all tend to be gay anyway. Or it's like it's kind of built into the fabric of the universe in which like the perspective. I think that's incredibly valuable. But I think there is a real onus upon publishers and upon magazines and upon publishing houses and readers to open themselves up to other voices. And that's something that I really, really, really love in terms of voices that are not queer, but they might be First Nations, for example, or anything else.
Mm.
The best book that I've read the last couple of years is Stephen Graham Jones' The Buffalo Hunter. It is so, so good. And it's not a story that I would have ever written. I don't have that experience. I don't have those particular, the life journey that has led somebody to write a book as powerful as The Buffalo Hunter. But I'm so glad that somebody did. And that required, firstly, the belief in your own conviction. It needed the belief of your readers that you build up over time. And it believes in it. You need the belief of a publisher who is willing to go, we're going to do this and we're going to go all the way and we're not going to flinch. So
Mm.
I think that, again, it's important for people to not flinch, writers, but we need publishers, magazines who promote books, and also reviewers to not be flinching either. So those are all the
Mm.
things that I think kind of factor into it. It's incredibly important. But I think for me, I just try not to think about it too much because also I can't allow myself to become trapped by somebody's perception of me as a certain type of writer. And I think to myself, I didn't go all the way through hell just to be somebody else's angel. So I'm going to just be as authentic as I possibly can. But it's incredibly important. I think also along the way that we cherish and we should highlight all the really great writers who are out there doing it absolutely just going all the way in on all of this stuff. But I think it's also really, really important that we acknowledge those who came before us and the shoulders that we stand upon. And those are people who did go out there. Like I remember reading as a kid, I read Sacrament by Clive Barker. And like that is a story that could only have been written by a queer man. And it was so important that experience was because it's about queer extinction. And it's so, so important. There's this great kind of moment in it where the narrator talks about if the society we lived in wanted queer people gone, they would have figured out a way to get rid of us by now. But despite everything else, we keep blooming like flowers through concrete. And it's such a great story about queer resiliency. That book should have been written by a gay man and it was, and it got out there. Somebody believed in it, and Clive Barker absolutely copped shit for it for a long period of time until the world caught up to him. But there are also authors who are really great, who wrote through metaphor about the exact same type of stuff because they didn't have the belief of other people, or just the landscape wasn't there yet. Authors like Michael McDowell, for example, who wrote Beetlejuice. He wrote incredible novels throughout the early 80s and into the 90s before he died at a really, really young age from AIDS. But he was writing about queer otherness through the lens of Southern Gothic. So there were really great authors who were doing it all along, and we need to highlight and acknowledge all of that stuff too, because sometimes the stuff that is holding back speaks louder to a certain experience too. And I still want to give people, even new authors, the benefit of still doing that too, because that stuff's important as well.
I think it's a good time to add in, make sure you're doing sensitivity stuff as well.
Yeah.
Get one of my pet peeves is reading like end-to-end romance written by straight people, and you read it and it is the exact opposite of authentic. And it's like someone's fetishized an entire group of people for a book. So it doesn't happen. Like
Mm.
there are a number of straight male and female authors writing queer romances doing a brilliant job. But there are also some who are just, it's almost, well, it can be offensive. And
Yeah.
if you're going to write about any community, whether it's queer, nations, I don't know, office workers, I don't know, some
Yeah.
whatever, get some sensitivity readers, make sure that you're being honest and be open to the feedback so that you can incorporate it. Otherwise, you're going to do a massive disservice to a bunch of people and also probably torpedo your own career.
Yeah, totally. And you got to remember as well is that like when none of us are like, I might write about queer stuff, but I'm like the least qualified person to write about some of it. So I'm still learning about my own community as well. And that I think that also I think it's so important to write the universe that you live in. And I think it's completely okay to have people who, using example only of queerness, for straight authors to want to write about queer people in the tapestry of their universe because they have queer friends and things like that. Do exactly as you've suggested. Touch base with sensitivity readers. Do it as right as you can. Humbleness when it comes to experience is a really, really great thing, and just be open to learning as you go along. It can be frustrating, and I mean, like I am a big reader, and I love all of it. And I've read a lot of books set in small towns where everyone is. I'm like, there wasn't one gay dude in this whole town. There wasn't like one lesbian. There wasn't one trans person in this whole town. Like that doesn't feel real to me anymore. Just as visibility rises, so I think it's great that we kind of reach out to our brothers and sisters and they thems who are better at that type of who know about that experience because they've lived it. No one wants to learn about that more and be sensitive about it than me. But I also think the thing that we need to be careful about is about um, creating avenues for minority voices to be heard. And we put them in a box where they can only be the good gay, or they can only be the good person, where they can't be villains, where they can't be flawed. You know, when especially if, like, for example, we're going to go into the areas of disability, for example. And there have been many, many people that I've worked with who are disability advocates who are really passionate. And the one takeaway that I've taken from them is that they don't want to become somebody's pet panda because of this cute kind of this box that somebody's put them in. So I'm really conscious about those type of things and still learning about how we allow ourselves to be true, but also still to be flawed and honest. I think that's what it comes down to. And honesty is also about saying, I honestly don't know about this. Who can I learn from and work with on this? So I think those are some of the things that we should always strive towards, regardless of where you're from.
I love that you mentioned that kind of writing inclusively, because I think that one of the fears that I have, and probably other authors have as well, is we don't want to culturally appropriate. And I'm not just talking about black and white, whatever color skin a person has. I'm this disability community, the queer community, the leather community, if you want to write some spicy stuff, whatever it is, like we're all really cautious. And for me, I'm cautious to the point where I don't include people in the book, even though I want to, because I don't want to upset someone. So I'm expanding and growing in that particular area and just trying to make sure, because I want to see a world that is celebrating First Nations stories and people living with a disability in their stories, and gay people and single mums and all that sort of stuff. It comes back to that stuff that we've all spoken about throughout the podcast. If you've got a good community around you, then you're going to know people that you can go to and say, would you mind reading this? You're a single mum. I've got a single mum character. I want this to be as authentic as possible. I'm not a woman. I'm not a parent. Help me out here and give me some feedback. And I think it's also about accepting we're never going to get it right, because no two people's experiences are the same. So unless everybody in the world sensitivity reads our book, we're going to screw up something. But we've got to have the courage to just, to at least try and to be as honest as we possibly can, as brave as we can be, and as well-meaning and I guess kind and considerate as we can be.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Well, I just want to thank you for being with us. I think we've hogged you for ages. Absolutely no idea how long.
We didn't read off one question, well, maybe more than one or two questions from the questions that we sent you. So Aaron, you've been a total sport here. You've just rolled with the whole thing, and we've gone totally off book. So off script. So thank you.
But I am going to come back to one question, which is, where can people find you and your books and your social media and stuff online so they can contact you or follow you or buy your stuff?
Look, books wherever good books are sold. If you like my stuff, leave a review. If you hate my stuff, leave a review. That really does help. It really does help. So you can find me wherever good books are sold. I have novels, novellas, and short stories out there. I love to be as interactive with readers as humanly possible. So if you can find me out there, hit me up. I'm absolutely open to engaging with people. I try to hit the convention circuit as much as I can, both here in Australia and in the States. So if you see me, come up to me and let's have a chat. If you like horror shit, I like you. That's the way it's like. We have already preached like the horror people, genre people, lovers of speculative fiction and creative people are my vibe. So hit me up if you see me in person. In the online space, heaven help me, I have a TikTok. I'm at Aaron Dries _writer. Hit me up there. I'm on Instagram at Aaron Dries. I'm on Threads at Aaron Dries, and I'm on Blue Sky at Aaron Dries. Bluesky.social. So, but I'm probably most active on Instagram and TikTok these days.
And now people will find you on YouTube through Empowered Words and A Sense of Wonder, the podcast, and on Apple and Spotify as they listen to this. Just want to say a huge thank you for being so generous with your time and your answers and engaging with us in helping us go down those little rabbit holes and drilling down further and further. And of course,
Selina, I've got to ask one more question. I'm sorry.
It's
the very first question. It's the very first. I know you are, but I've been dying to know this, and I was hoping you were going to ask it, and you didn't.
Okay.
It's the very first question I think that you sent over. It's not important at all, but I really want to know what your favorite horror movie is.
The reason I laugh is that realistically, if we could have had a whole podcast about why this film is my favorite film, but also all I've got to tell you is that I tell you what it is, and you go, "Well, that makes sense." Given everything that was spoken about, my favorite horror film of all time is Carrie, the adaptation by Brian De Palma of the Stephen King novel. And it is my favorite for probably all the reasons we've already spoken about. It's about confidence. It is about belief. It is about self-awareness. It is about coming of age. It is about rage. It is about hurt. It is about honesty. It is about falling on your face. It is about doing the wrong things. It's about being reactionary. And that's just the thematic stuff. On top of that, it's stylish as all heck. It is made with exuberance. It is operatic. It is full of a deep, penetrating melancholy that most adaptations would sacrifice and would lose something brilliant in the process. And I think that that melancholy is probably evident in my work, even beneath all the viscera. And that's something that I probably strive towards. And if I do have somebody that I'm always thinking about in the void, I am thinking about Carrie. And I hope she's okay wherever she is, but we know how that story ends and about the interventions that could have been there along the way. But gosh, didn't we go down swinging, you know? So that's my favorite. I love it. I keep thinking it's not just my favorite horror film, it's my favorite film ever. And I've seen it so many times because it also has become a movie about community as well. It's we all want to be invited to prom. We all want to go there. And I think that there is a certain type of person. And I also think that the queer community has really embraced Carrie White in a way that I think speaks to the outsider. And I think that there is maybe that prom, although it didn't end really great for Carrie and everyone there, I think that in the husks of that fiery inferno, real beauty has come, and that's the horror community. But I think it really comes down to melancholy, and I think that there's something in that I resonates in me as an individual, and it's probably there in my writing as well.
Is your partner like Mr. Love and Light, all things bright and happy, rainbows and puppy dogs, or is he also into dark, melancholy, moody stuff?
Oh, no, he does not like this stuff. I have been slowly indoctrinating him into into the world of horror, and over nine or so years, I've had some successes and some failures on that. My partner loves to cook, so we both are creative in different ways. And unlike him getting to read, you can't eat a book, but I can eat a beautiful meal. So I'm here to support each other.
I always wonder that. I always wonder how the partners of horror authors, quite a couple of guests that we've had who write horror reflect on how much their families worry about them and their sanity. So it always does intrigue me.
I have a really supportive partner because my partner doesn't have to love all the things that I write about, but my partner is completely supportive of the community and is often there to support others who are on that similar journey. I really like that. I think that's all I could ever ask for.
Aaron, you are a beautiful human being. It has been such a joy talking to you. Yeah, thank you so much for giving us, 2.5, 3 hours of your life.
This might be a double episode.
It could be.
You do come back, Aaron. We will have another chat with you. All right, Jared, let's do the outro so we can let Aaron have his life back. So thanks for sharing a bit of your day or your night with us. We hope that you've enjoyed this show.
We will see you again soon. Please keep spinning those ideas into works of art or whatever your creative outlet is, and keep that sense of wonder alive in your heart and mind.
And of course, remember, if you've enjoyed this episode, please like it and subscribe to our channel on YouTube, or leave us a review and let your friends know about us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Once again, thanks to Aaron Dries for being remarkably deep and giving us such a beautiful episode to give birth to and send out into the world. And we will see you next time.
Bye for now.
Bye.